Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Thriving Female Podcast. I am your host, Amy, and in today's episode, I wanted to talk about a mindset, I suppose, that I see come up in a lot of the coaching conversations that I have with my clients. And it's actually a conversation that I've had maybe 3 or 4 times over the last week or so. And it's also a phrase that I used to say all of the time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the idea that I can't. And you'll probably know what I mean. You will say things like, I just can't go to the gym because I'm too busy right now. I just can't say no to snacks. Once I have one, I just can't stop. Now, this mindset, this idea that I can't is, I'm going to say it's an incredibly damaging mindset to have, because we tell ourselves, and I used to do this, right? I used to tell myself that I can't say no to snacks after work. This was something I would say all the time. If someone brought in like a tub of mini rolls at work from M&S or whatever, and they were always, where my desk was in one of my jobs, it was like the end of the bank of desks. So we had a filing cabinet next to me, and they would always leave the chocolates on the desk. And it was so, I would say all the time, I just can't say no to them. Like, if you leave them there, I will eat them. I can't stop myself. I would also say all the time that I remember having a conversation with a friend once, and her saying to me, why don't you join the gym with me? And I was like, I just can't, because I haven't got time. I haven't got time to go to the gym. I just can't do it. And when you tell yourself things like this, I just can't say no to snacks after work. I can't fit in a workout. That feels like a fact. It feels like something out of your control. It's something that you are saying, I can't do it. That is a fact. I cannot do it. When in actual fact, it's not a fact at all. It's not always about your ability. It's not always about capacity. It is about choice. And this is going to sound like I am being a bit of a dick, and I am saying this is you like making a choice, but hear me out and then make your call on this. When we say I can't, we're in victim mode. Life is happening to us. We are letting things happen. And it's one of the biggest things that left me feeling stuck for so long. It's one of the reasons that I never lost weight for a really long period of time, because I felt like everything was out of my control. Like, life was happening to me. The way I think about a lot of my corporate career was I was almost like a little boat in a storm being buffeted by everything, and I had no control of it. Stuff would happen to me, work would come in, family stuff would happen, life would happen, my food would happen to me, and I felt like I wasn't in control of anything, when that actually wasn't the case. Because if you change the phrase I can't to I'm not willing to, it feels different. So rather than saying I can't prep my lunch this week because I haven't got time, what you're actually saying is I'm not willing to prep my lunch this week. Rather than saying I can't get up at 6 to go to the gym, what you're saying is I'm not willing to get up at 6 to go to the gym. And that feels different. It feels uncomfortable, and I know it feels uncomfortable, but what it does do is give you back your power. Because I'm going to be super honest here. This is how I am with my clients. If they're going through something, I'm going to share my own experiences with it too, if I can empathize, because this is me. Like, every human being does this. This morning, I'm recording this on a Thursday afternoon, and usually I would go to the gym on a Thursday morning. But I'm actually going off on holiday later on today. I've got a lot to do, a lot of packing to do, a lot of ironing to do. Don't get me started. I went for a run yesterday and did Pilates class, and I'm a little bit stiff. And last night, when we were getting ready for bed, I turned to my partner Harry and said, "Are we going to the gym in the morning?" And he went, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, I don't think I can go." That was my comment. I don't think I can go. When actually, if I was really honest about it, I wasn't willing to go to the gym because I was prioritizing something else. I was prioritizing being lazy. I was prioritizing things feeling easier. I was prioritizing getting to wake up and scroll in bed for an hour rather than getting up and going to the gym. I was prioritizing having a lazy night the night before and not doing things I needed to do in order to get ahead of the game. And I didn't like admitting that. And once I said that to myself, once I said to myself, wait, can you go, or are you just making a choice not to go? And what are you prioritizing if you don't do it? I didn't like that. And I wasn't willing to prioritize being lazy over doing what I normally would do. So I went to the gym. But that's not always the case. There was a time a few weeks ago where I said, I can't go for a run today. And actually I reframed it and said, no, I can go for a run. I could go for a run. I'm not willing to go for a run because actually I'm going to prioritize rest. I'm going to prioritize recovery. I'm going to prioritize doing this run at a point when my body's in a better place to do it. But both of those reframes put me in control. They make me responsible for my choice. I'm not a victim of time or like YouTube or Clarkson's Farm or whatever it is that I am choosing to prioritize otherwise. I am making that choice. Like, that is not something that's happening to me. It's something that I am doing. And there are two types of versions of this, if you like. There is, in the first instance, the thing you are not willing to do, i.e. I can't go to the gym after work, becomes I'm not willing to go to the gym after work. Like, if you really wanted to go to the gym after work, you would. If you wanted to, you would. And in fact, a example of this that I sometimes use, that I come back to in my own life, is there are times when I'll tell myself I can't go to the gym because I'm too busy. But then I think back to the point when I was working in my corporate job full time, and I was building my business at the same time. And I was also, at that point, deep into kind of a bodybuilding style of training where I was training in the gym 5 times a week. And I used to get up, I don't know why I did it, but I used to get up at like 4:30 in the morning to drive to the gym, to be there for 5 when it opened, to train for an hour, to come home, to work for an hour, to then start my corporate job. Like, I could do it. If I wanted to go for a run, I could do it. If I wanted to go for a walk in the rain, I could do it. But I choose to prioritize something else. If you wanted to, you would. And I think that's something that we have to recognize. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but it's recognizing that, you could get up when your alarm goes off and go to the gym. You could set the alarm an hour earlier and go to the gym, but you're not willing to do that, or not willing to put the steps in place to make that happen. Something that I often come back to when it comes to like getting up early is, if you were getting on an early flight to go on holiday, you get up at 3 a.m. to get that early flight. You can do it. You just are not willing to. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. Like, it's not a bad thing not to be willing to do something. If that's not something that's right for you, you don't need to do it. Now, getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym, not something I'm willing to do, because I have other things that I'd rather prioritize. Getting a decent night's sleep, spending some time with Harry in the evening rather than having to go to bed at like 8:30, being able to actually be a bit more flexible, be a bit more free. But at the time, that was something I was willing to do. And it's about recognizing that you are in control of that. So that's the first thing. The first type is that thing that when you say, I can't do it, well, actually, it's just that you're not willing to do it. There's also a second part of this, when people will say, I can't go into the big weights area of the gym. I have this conversation a lot with clients when they start working with me, and we talk about going into the gym, and they say, I can't go into the gym. I can't do it. Or we'll talk about wearing a pair of shorts, and they'll say, I just can't wear shorts. And the fact is, you could do that, but you are not willing to be uncomfortable in doing so. And that's a different thing. The same thing applies with it, in that if you wanted to, you could. It's about pushing through the discomfort and building up your capacity to handle that discomfort. And that's something that we do through the coaching process. When I have clients who say they can't go into the big weights area of the gym, we have a particular process that we use to get you comfortable with that, so that you feel like you can be able to. And we find the level of discomfort you're prepared to, you are willing to handle, and we work with that. But with all of these things, it's about recognizing that you are in control. And what this does, it shifts the narrative from you being powerless to you being powerful, because you are not a victim of circumstance. Life is not happening to you. You are a strong woman. You are working a busy job. You are handling a lot of shit right now. You are not a victim of things happening to you. You are in control of your own life. Circumstances will be what they will be, but your choices within those circumstances, they really matter. Something that I often talk about with clients is that we all, each of our lives is a box, and the circumstances we're in are a box, and we can't necessarily do things outside of that box, but what we do within that box, we are in control of. We can't control the news, the weather, what your colleague's going to email you. We can't control if it rains tomorrow. We can't control a whole bunch of stuff. Like, most of the things in the world are outside of our control. The one thing that is within our control is our choices. And when it comes to going to the gym, making time to meal prep, making time to go get your steps done, going for a walk, self-care, like getting up early, whatever it is, you can do those things, but it is your choices around them. And owning the things that you won't do rather than things that you can't do, because there's nothing you can't do, apart from things that are literally physically impossible, like flying or turning invisible, and I still have hopes that might happen one day. But apart from things that are physically impossible, you can do anything you want. But there are things that you won't do or you are not willing to do. And when you own those things you aren't willing to do, it helps you get clearer on your principles and on your priorities. And it helps you recognize the choices that you're making that might be keeping you stuck and the things that are your red lines. You know, there are things in my own life right now that are red lines, that are things that when it comes to my priorities, I am not prepared to compromise on. So, for example, a really important one for me is that I will always make sure I go for one run a week unless I am injured and physically incapable of doing so. And that is something that is a red line, and I will make sure that happens. But there are certain things in my life that I am more flexible about. You know, if I get my Pilates class in or I don't get my Pilates class in, I'm not religious about it. I will be flexible around it. There are certain red lines I have within my personal life of things that we always make sure that we do. You know, we always make sure that we have a dinner together at least once a week as like a date night. And that is a red line that I am not prepared to compromise. And if something else I wanted to do bled into that, then that would be the thing that comes first. But it's about understanding your things you aren't willing to do and things you are willing to do, and the things that you will compromise on and won't compromise on. Another personal example is scrolling on my phone. I am terrible for scrolling on my phone. And I will do things like I'll tell Harry that I can't finish work at a certain time because I'm too busy, that I can't go for a walk with him after work because I'm too busy. But the actual fact is, I am not willing to stop scrolling on YouTube at lunchtime. And if I did do that, then I would be able to go for a walk with him. Once I acknowledged that, once I had that conversation with myself, I was able to recognize that I could make a shift and I could change things in order to do things, because I could do it. I just wasn't willing to compromise something else. And actually, I really should compromise that thing because it wasn't serving me. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being in charge and recognizing that ultimately you are in control of your choices. You are in control of how you show up. And as I say, there is nothing you can't do. There are a lot of things you might be choosing to do instead. I hope that little rant made sense. If you have any questions about this or want to chat any of this through, or have some things that are coming up for you listening to this episode, please reach out, pop me a message. I'm always happy to chat. But have a little think. What is one thing that you have said recently where you've said, I can't? And when you start to flip that in your head to I won't, what changes for you? I'd love to hear from you. So do let me know. If it's anything you want me to cover in these episodes, anything you're particularly wanting to hear about, any topics you want me to cover, do let me know. Next week's episode, we are talking all about gut health, which I'm very excited about. It's a bit of a passion project of mine. To keep your eyes peeled, I don't know what we say for that episode. But have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will speak to you next time.